The topic which I am trying to cover today, as it says, securing your business through managed services. So first of all, I'll try to get on to what we are talking about when we talk about security and why you would need managed services in the first place. And then going on into talking a bit about our org as well and what you should be looking at from a managed service provider per se, right? Okay. So just some figures here. So first of all, as you can see over the last few years, there has been a rise in digitization, right? So needless to say, we have been more digital compared to a lot of developing countries in the last few years, right? How many of you will agree with me? So I'm sure everyone will, right? So if you see in the last few years, we have become more digitized. What does it mean? What does that mean? That also means that we have become more insecure, right? Just imagine a man on the street can be hacked, right? So anyone carrying a mobile has connectivity. We are doing more digital transactions, which also means we are now carrying security risk in the pocket of every man on the street, everyone who is using the application, right? So your attack surface has also increased. And that is also the reason why you see number of cyber attacks in 2022 was estimated. And of course, the estimates can be different in different magazines, and it can be different by different people, but it was estimated to be around 14 lakhs, right? And this is an India figure. 14 lakh attacks in India alone, which itself is a whooping figure. And if you look at the global average, we see we are much, much higher when it comes to the global average. So what went wrong? We had a beautiful story, we are getting digitized, we are moving forward, but somewhere, to be very honest, we never were a security aware or never were a security rigid organization or company or a country per se, right? Because we always looked at security as a second fiddle, right? And now that's what the hackers know. That's what the world knows. And obviously that is the reason you see that the number of attacks in India is much more. And we are becoming more attacked, or we are getting more attacked compared to the global average, like I mentioned, right? So secondly, if you look at banks, since we are talking about BFSI, if you look at banks, this data which we talk about are almost 248 successful breaches, and these are just official numbers. The real numbers are much, much larger than that, right? So what does that mean? It means there is real need for us to pull up our socks to see what's going wrong. Are we missing the basics, right? Are we taking the basics for granted? Is the attack surface has increased? Is it easy for us to scale up, right? Of course, digitization has increased, regulatory bodies have become strict, they're saying you need to report an incident in 6 hours. But what happens when you say report an incident in 6 hours? Which means that obviously when an authority walks up to you after an incident, he's going to say, what did you do to protect the incident or prevent the incident, right? Where are your feeds, right? How are your remediations happening? Where are your processes? So obviously you are going to be audited, right? So needless to say, the measures which are being put up by a regulator is only towards making sure that you have all the right checks and balances, the right controls in place so that you have created a secure organization, right? But keeping pace with IT, keeping pace with requirements is going to be difficult, right? For banks, for BFSI segment, for organizations whose core business is not IT and security. Just imagine you are all becoming an IT organization, right? How difficult is that? I'm sure everybody knows the cost of a security engineer, right? Everybody knows the cost of putting a equipment on site, maintaining it, running it for 5 years, right? So it's difficult, it's expensive, right? And even if you get the best resources, it's very difficult to hold them because you have a captive environment, right? In such a scenario, how do you ensure that you have the best people running your show? You have the best people, the best equipment, and you have the right environment which is protected, and you can sleep peacefully at night, right? So this is where we are talking about how do we fight back, right? We are talking about acceptance that yes, there is a need and security need to go beyond organizations, right? You need experts, like they say, right? If you have a problem, you need to go to the experts. You need to work with people, you need to work with organizations, you need to work with organizations which understands or is working beyond one organization. It's working with multiple organizations and who understands the security landscape, who understands what's going on around and is able to protect the organizations together. It's a synergy. It's no longer one organization against the world. So I remember one of my colleagues, he's also a colonel, he does mention that when the country is at war, only the army doesn't fight, right? You get everyone together. So presently we are at war. If you see, if we are saying the global average, that we are getting attacked more than the global average, it means we are at war. Somebody is attacking us. We have got hacktivists. We have got state-sponsored terrorism attacking us, right? So if that is the case, what do? You take all the resources which you have in the country and you work together, right? And that's the need of the hour. And this is what we are talking about. So secondly, we are saying outsourcing with intelligence. So nobody is talking about that, you give it to somebody who doesn't understand. The controls always need to be with the org. But the thought process and which we are seeing an adaptation happening not only in India but across the globe is that let the experts do the job, but have the control with the organization. So have the right people, have the right CISOs, the right organizations around in the organization, but have it outsourced with the control within the organization. So that's the thought process. But having said that, how do you look at a synergy with the right partner? How do you trust a partner? What do you look for when you look at a security partner? So security is a very complex word. I'm sure most of you will agree with me that it is not about just a few SOC analysts or somebody who has just woken up yesterday, done a few certifications and say, I know security, right? Somebody who has evolved, an organization which has evolved from the IT landscape, which understands IT, which understands processes, which understands people, which understands hosting. And then you also say, yes, we do understand security, we understand design, right? And especially, just to give you an example, a simple thing like SOC, like when we say, oh, I have a SOC running. Are we expecting a SOC analyst who has probably never seen a database to be able to remediate against a complex database, attack vector, right? He would probably not know what to do, right? So this is where synergy should look at organizations which have that type of expertise, which goes beyond pure security, which goes into IT, which has domain expertise in various areas, and which can club it along with security so that the remediation can be effected. Because many a times you may get an alert, but then the alert or what you get back as a feedback has to be actionable. And that actionable part comes in when you have people who understand technology, who understand that particular aspect of security, right? Are you with me here? How many people feel that, I'm making sense here? Okay, thank you. So, secondly, we are talking about scrutiny of location. Secondly, as we are all aware, there is a data security bill pending. We all know what's going to come. We all are talking about data localization, service provider localization, trust factors, right? So, obviously, that's very important that the synergy happens with partners, who are local, who can keep your data local, whose interests are within the organization, right? So while there could be and I'm seeing a lot of organizations across, not only India, companies which always feel that, if there is a geopolitical fallout, and today, embargoes need not be in terms of military action alone, right? Embargoes could be just cutting your data off. So how protected are we in such a scenario if suppose a few MNCs tomorrow decide that, oh, fine, I don't need to secure you, I stop services for you, I cut you off, right? So that is again something to think about, right? Flexibility, you need to say, okay, every day is a new day, right? I'm sure that not many people would have heard about dark web monitoring, say 10 years back, or 5 years back, or a brand protection services 3 years back, right? But now we are talking about cases where uneducated people are setting up websites using intelligence or gathering some people and selling franchisees of known brands. We all know what I'm talking about, right? So we all read the news, we all understand security. So what we are trying to say is that technology is also evolving. So when technology is evolving, The thought processes are evolving. You need to have synergy with partners who are also evolving, who are flexible, who are not very rigid with their offerings, right? So here's where we want to introduce ourselves. We are ESDS, a 19-plus-year-old organization, and would want to talk about some of the things that we do. We are a cloud service provider. From a lot of years, we are one of the 12 METI empaneled vendors. We are a GCC empaneled vendor, which means we are open to audits, which means our data is local and it can be audited by the government as well. We are talking about a wide range of flexible managed services and managed security services offerings, right? So as I mentioned, flexible, that's the word, right? So when you talk about one service, it has to get connected with the other service. So you cannot say, I will give you a plain vanilla monitoring service or a SOC monitoring service and then you care about remediation. You would come back, what about remediation? I don't have the skill. Oh, no problem, sir. We could also have that skill built in. So this is where we are talking about flexibility, right? Great place to work. We have more than 30% employees which have remained with the company for long decades, for more than a decade now, right? We also have a resource pool of domain expertise. This word is very critical. So when I say domain expertise, today, irrespective of whether you're talking about pure IT management, you're talking about security management, you need to have domain experts who understand various different components, right? So for example, if you have an attack in your layer, there has to be experts who understand network, where to prevent it. You need to have experts in the database who understand, for example, what a log4j impact brings in, right? Or what a ransomware, how it could be debugged, and what could be the impact, where could I copy it, right? How could I take a backup, or if I have to protect the data, or even if keep a evidence for forensics, right? What are the precautions I should be taking, right? These things become very important, right? So this is where we are talking about domain expertise. And that domain expertise comes with us having run 1,000+ customers for over a long period of time, having run multiple data centers, running clouds over there, managing end-to-end customer environments here, right? We are a CMMI level 3 organization, which means we also have development teams within us. Why is that so? Because we built our own cloud orchestration platform. We were one of the first to do that, which has a patented auto-scaling technology, patented in US and UK. We got the India patent here last year in 2022, right? So we have a team of developers which also, because this is also a crucial element. Many a times you may want to write a piece of code to protect certain environments. You would want to extend security in certain way. And that flexibility comes in when you have all the aspects. You have the technologists, you have the strategists, you have the process people, you have the developers, everyone working together, right? We are a process-driven organization, various certifications, we'll talk about it. We have the patented cloud, as we mentioned, and we are the top 3 tier 3 compliant data center. So whenever you look at a service provider, you also look at where he's running it from. Today there are a lot of companies which say, I do security probably running from a shop, right? So how does it matter to you? What happens if his shop closes down, power goes off to his shop, right? What happens to your data? What happens when you need it the most? What happens when you need the logs the most and you are up with an agency which is asking you, what did you do about security, right? What happens for the remediation? What happens where, we are working with somebody who's not able to scale? You suddenly have an attack and he says, oh, I don't have the infrastructure to store your logs, right? Because the number of logs have just increased. So these are aspects to also look at, and that is where all of these components become very important from security, from managed services point of view as well. So that's some statistics about our organization, 19-year organization, 4 continents, 450+ banks, right? 1,000+ customers, 1,300+ employees, out of them 60% technical, right, in technical operations, 99.97 uptime for all our data centers that we have. We have a JV with STPI, we have 4 data centers today, and we would be scaling up to another 4. So we would be having around 8 data centers by the end of the year. 35% of populations, we have touch points. You talk about any project, you talk about any critical infrastructure project, most of them we are there. You talk about smart metering, you talk about banks, you talk about critical infrastructure, right? Even Certain is hosted with us due to our JV with STPI. That also goes on to show about what we value and how we are trusted by the country, right? So that's a fleet of plethora of certifications that we carry just to bring out. As I mentioned, it's very important from where you run your infrastructure, right? Do you have a SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3 compliance? Even when you are doing a pure SOC services, Do you actually look at that, right? Where is the service provider providing you from services from? Does he have a data center with a tier 3 standard certification? Does he have scalability built in into his infrastructure, right? These should be the checkpoints which should be considered when we are looking at service providers or partners who can work with you in synergy, right? So some of the products and services portfolio that we carry. So under Cloud IaaS, we have community clouds, we have public private clouds, we also have co-location, and we can do a mix and match. So as I said, our strength is our flexibility. Our strength is that we were born in a country which invented the word jugaad, right? So which means that, obviously a customer doesn't come and say, I need a private cloud with XYZ and I will only use the components. We are not used to that. But unfortunately, we are being forced to adapt to those standards because there were clouds which came out initially which forced you to adapt their language. We are never there. And that takes away your flexibility. So here we are talking about a flexible cloud which can build a colo to a cloud, to a private cloud, to a completely shared environment, to a community environment. So multiple things that we can offer under one roof. We are talking about our own products, like I said, apart from the Li360, which is our own cloud orchestration platform. We are also talking about products like VTM Scan, which can do a continuous scan, do a defacement monitoring of your environment, right? We are also talking about our own web WAF, which we created, or we are talking about web VPNs that we created. So we have a large number of customers, a lot of projects running where we have deployed these, and these are all useful, and all these go in defining our roots and defining our strengths, what we can do when it comes to providing service to you as an organization, right? So under managed services, which we'll go a little more into deep, we are talking about IT cloud operations. So like I mentioned, that how do you go after remediation if you have a problem? You need to have the expertise built into your organization where you have various domain experts. So this is where we are talking about an IT cloud operation services. And it's very relevant when it comes to security. So an organization which says that I just know how to monitor is not a security company, right? An organization which just says that I run out of a shop, right? I can tell you what to do, but you figure out how to do it, right? That's not an organization which is a security organization at all, right? We are talking about consulting services. You want to build your own data center, right? You want to audit data centers. We could help you with those consulting as well. We also have DevOps services, DevSecOps services, code reviews, VAPT, WAPT, you name it, those are services that we do here. We'll talk about it in detail. So that's a plethora of services that we offer. Everything from cloud managed services to consulting to DevSecOps. Going into managed security services, again, we cover the whole gamut of services. Everything from insight services, which is our assessment service, because obviously after defining a security posture, the first thing you would want to do is assess, have a gap, have a modeling around that. So that's exactly what we do under insight services. Going on to Eagle Eye services, which is our monitoring services. So when I say monitoring, it can be clubbed. The services can all be built in a very flexible way. You could have remediation either directly through something like a SOAR. You could have a hybrid environment of people deployed. You could club this with an IT managed service or a cloud operation service, right? So just imagine everything working like a proper orchestra for you so that you have an end-to-end gamut of security services at your doorstep. So we do VAPT, right? We also do WAPT. We do API level VAPT as well. Dark web monitoring service, as I said, these are recent terms and very, very relevant because you would have the best infrastructure, but what happens beyond perimeter, right? You will need to know, and of late we are hearing a lot of cases which could have been prevented had somebody been monitoring the dark web, had somebody been looking at typo squatted domains similar to your domains created. Phishing attacks could have been stopped if those typo squatted or phishing domains could have been prevented or taken off the air. So that's something which we offer under the brand protection services. We also build SOC for customers who would say that I would also want to. So there would be tech savvies which say, oh, if I'm building an IT infra for me, why do I restrict it to myself? Why don't I look at a similar industry, right? And become a case study for them, right? So if I am in a particular industry, I say that I set up the SOC and I may probably want to service all associated organizations in that industry, provided the licenses allow you to do that. So we can also help you do that. We can work with you, not only help you set up that SOC, we can help you monetize from that SOC as well. Because we understand, we have built data centers across, we understand how these managed services work, and we can also help you monetize, right? So that covers for your cost of IT, because cost of IT, cost of security is continuously increasing, and it's about time the orgs also start thinking about how you monetize your IT and security teams, so that you can cover the cost which the teams have become. They have become cost centers. We want to convert them into profit centers, right? So that talks about an end-to-end life cycle of security, everything from assessment, operations as a service, to dark web monitoring, right? Which converts into reports that goes back to the customer, client teams. And these teams again could be teams which are hybrid model, in a hybrid model where it could be from a service provider, from us, say for example, right? Which is working on site along with the SOC, right? Which works again with own intelligence which is built out of honeypots, intelligence coming in from multiple threat feeds, and which is able to leverage the learnings from other customers so that it can be applied to your environment, right? So this gives a background of what we are talking about. Moving a little bit into each of the services. So gap, assessment. So we have capability, in the interest of time, running off a little bit faster. But yes, we have capabilities in each of these areas, right? We're talking about how a typical model of SOC works here. VAPT, as I mentioned, we can do everything end to end, right? Everything from assessment, working with you, going all the way in building red teaming, blue teaming. We do not do red teaming, blue teaming today, but as I said, we are flexible, critical mass, we work with you end to end to build that as well, right? Okay. So typically, as I said, remediation, we have a team, we have domain expertise, we can work with various environments, we can work with various, it could be our own SOC, it could be a SOC from some other service provider. We could work at the remediation arm for you. There are customers which tell us that, okay, we do get alerts from our SOC player, SOC provider, but we don't know what to do. I go to my IT team and say, oh, why don't you remediate? And they say, we don't know, we don't have expertise. They just told us that there is an alert, what do we do about it, right? Do you expect me to, learn everything and do that? By that time, the hacker will have a field day, right? So this is again an area which is very important, I feel, is something which should surely be considered, right? Dark web brand protection. 2 alarms have gone by, so I'll move a little faster here, right? So this is some statistics on our managed operations capability. So we have 1,000+ managed firewalls. We have 100+ managed AD services, spam and managed EDR as a service for multiple customers. We have a scale per demand. We have 1,000+ customers, right? On managed services, we have 2817, so many million events which we analyze per day, right, from our SOC for multiple customers, based on which we are able to prevent a lot of attacks. There have been cases where we have been able to turn back successful ransomware attacks as well, just to bring out some strengths of the organization, right? And this in brief is a pyramid of some advantages we bring on the table. Everything trusted by various organizations, focused on innovation, wide coverage of managed services, and being an Indian company and can work very closely with you to offer flexible offerings to ensure that everything is secure end to end, right? That's some of our technology partners we work with, and the list is growing, right? That's me. Any questions from you? I will be happy to answer questions.
So we'll have to take it offline, sir.
Okay, sorry. So I'll just take another 2 minutes. Since we are in Nashik and we have our data center in Nashik, we invite you to visit our data center, meet our management team, and we can work closely with you. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your patience.